The browser is the hub for all of your content, including project templates, track templates, plugins, instruments, loops, and more. To get up and running quickly, the browser has default content location presets which point to all of SONAR's included content, including SONAR's projects templates, which are in sample content and then the projects templates folder. Drag and drop a project template from the browser to the track view to add it to an existing project. You can also add your own custom locations to the content list. To do this, navigate to the folder you wish to add and click the Save button. Then you'll see it show up in the list of content locations. To remove a location from the list, navigate to the folder, press the Delete button, and click OK in the pop-up menu. Like templates, project files can be added to an existing project. The project's clips will start where the inserted project was dropped in the timeline, and will snap accordingly to the new project's snap value. They can also be dropped in the empty space in the Tracks pane, in which case the clips will start at measure 1. Double-clicking on a project in the browser opens it in a separate window, allowing you to work on the project on its own. Track templates have a preset content location in the browser as well, with shortcuts for audio and instrument track templates. Again, drag and drop to add it to the project. Soft synth track templates work the same way and support simple instrument track templates like the SI Drums Rock Kit, as well as multi-out soft synth track templates like the Session Drummer 3 JB Sonar Kit. Track icons also have a preset content location in the browser and can be dragged from the browser to the track's icon header or directly to the track itself, whether they're simple colors or one of the many instrument icons. The browser defaults to automatically previewing a loop by clicking on it. To force previewed loops to sync to the project's tempo, go to the Media Browser's menu and select Preview at Host Tempo. The browser's audio output can be routed to any bus within the project, or routed directly to any of the audio interface's hardware outputs. Having a bus named Preview and routing the browser to it means you can independently adjust the browser's output. Right-click on the channel's fader and choose Revert to change the level back to its previous setting. Just like with the templates before, adding an audio loop to the project is done by dragging and dropping it into the track view, either onto an existing track or to an empty space where a track will automatically be created. Multiple loops in the browser can be previewed at the same time by clicking on one loop, holding Control, and then clicking on another. Repeat this to multi-preview as many loops as you like, and then drag them into the track view at the same time where they will automatically go to different tracks. Then lasso the selected loops, grab one of the clip's rightmost edges, and roll it out to repeat it as many times as you like. Loops can also be dropped directly from the browser to the matrix view, which itself can be opened up with the keyboard shortcut Alt-5. Grab a loop in the browser and drop it onto a cell in the matrix view. Click on the newly formed cell in the matrix to play it back, and then click it again to stop it. As with the track view, multiple clips can be dragged from the browser and dropped into the matrix by holding Control when selecting them and then dragging them over. Click the matrix's column header to play back all of the cells in the column. Using the browser is a great way to preview loops together to see what fits. And the matrix is great for putting those pieces together and doing cool stuff like arranging and beat juggling. The browser is also useful for previewing one-shots. The one-shots folder is right next to the loop folder in the audio library and contains hundreds of drum and percussion hits in many different styles. Just like with loops, click a one-shot to preview it. But you'll want to go to the Media Browser's menu and turn off loop preview so the samples only play once instead of playing back over and over as a loop. One-shots are great for adding effects and stabs to a project or for building up custom drum kits in Session Drummer or your favorite sampler. When working with Session Drummer, pull up its interface, switch to the mixer page, and then drag and drop one-shots from the browser to the desired kit piece. The browser also handles MIDI files with ease. GrooveMonkey and Steven Slate include hundreds of MIDI drum loops with SONAR. The browser's context filter can be used to narrow your search, like when you just want to find drum fills. Previewing MIDI loops works just like audio loops. Click the file and it will play back. MIDI files can be previewed through any synth in the project. Just go to the Media Browser's menu, choose Synth Preview Output, select the desired synth, and click on another loop for the change to take effect. Then drag the MIDI loop onto a meteor instrument track. And just like with audio loops, drag the MIDI loop out to repeat it as many times as you like. MIDI clips can also be dragged from the browser and dropped into the step sequencer. The keyboard shortcut Alt-4 opens the step sequencer view. MIDI clips dropped into the step sequencer can be imported at resolutions from a quarter note to a 32nd note, and can have their original timing preserved or be forced to lock to the grid. When the original timing is preserved, the time offset CC data will be visible in each row's time offset lane. Similar to how the browser's MIDI preview can be routed to any synth in the project, an entire step sequencer clip can be rerouted by changing the MIDI output of the track that it's on. And MIDI clips can be dropped from the browser into the matrix, just like audio. Once in the matrix, clips can be moved and copied to other cells to create more complex arrangements. Multiple MIDI loops can be placed in different columns on the same row, so they can be beat juggled and arranged, just like audio clips. And like the browser and step sequencer, each matrix row can trigger any synth in the project. Select the Plugins tab in the browser to bring up the various plugin menus. The Audio Effects browser can use a custom plugin menu layout or the default layout, which shows all plugins without organization. The context filter can also be used when browsing plugins, which is great when looking for a specific effect or type of effect amidst a sea of plugins. Then drag an effect from the browser and drop it onto either the track itself, the track's track pane section, the effects bin, or the track's console strip. Effects can also be dropped directly onto a specific clip. And the same is true for effects chains. Dropping them onto tracks with the same drop zones as effects, or individual clips. MIDI effects can also be added to the project from the browser. Drag and drop an instrument into the track view or double-click it to add it to the project. The Insert Soft Synth Options menu lets you choose between inserting the synth on an instrument track or separate MIDI and all available stereo or mono audio tracks, and they can automatically be placed inside a track folder if desired. MIDI output can also be enabled if the synth supports that feature, and the destination track for the synth's automation can be chosen from the drop-down menu. Multi-out synths like Session Drummer 3 are best used with separate MIDI and audio tracks, but synths that only use a single stereo output, like Zeta, don't need separate audio and MIDI tracks and work best on instrument tracks. To avoid having this menu pop up every time a synth is added to the project, uncheck the Ask This Every Time option. And once inserted, Zeta is ready for immediate playback. And with the Ask This Every Time option unchecked, inserting and playing back soft synths like Zeta and Pentagon becomes nearly immediate. And using the context filter to find a synth like Dimension Pro and adding it to the project is a breeze. The Synth Rack is the hub for managing soft synths in Sonar. Click on a synth, its tracks will be selected, and it's ready for immediate playback. At the same time, the selected synth's active MIDI or instrument track becomes selected and visible in the track and console view. The QWERTY keyboard's arrow up and arrow down keys can also be used to toggle between synths. Double-click on a synth's name in the synth rack to rename it, and that new name will show up in the synth's track I/O. This can be useful when working with several instances of the same synth, so they don't all show up as similar names in the I/O list. There are also basic mixing controls in the synth rack like mute, solo, and freeze. And there's access to freeze options. Freezing a synth temporarily renders it to audio and takes it out of CPU and memory. And the synth can be disconnected and reconnected from the synth rack as well. In the synth rack's drop-down menu, options include having a disconnected synth be removed from CPU and memory, as well as force MIDI echo to be able to play a synth just by clicking on it, and to show and hide synth rack icons. Synths can also be inserted and deleted directly from the synth rack. The Insert Synth Options menu can be accessed and adjusted from here as well. And the track that a soft synth's automation data resides on can be changed and moved to any track in the project. The entire browser can also be dropped into the multi-dock, where the synth rack gets a larger, expanded view and shows more controls like automation read and write, as well as the synth's assignable controls. The assignable controls let you control the parameters of a synth without having to have the synth's interface open. Right-click in an empty control cell to insert a control. To learn controls, open the synth's interface, click the synth rack's Assign Controls button to put it in Learn mode, then move the synth's parameters in series that you want to learn to the synth rack. Click the Assign Controls button again to take it out of Learn mode, and then click Yes in the pop-up window to confirm the reassigned controls. Now Session Drummer 3's volume controls are mapped out to the synth rack. Just about any synth can have its controls assigned to the synth rack, like Dimension Pro. This is great for mapping out fundamental synth controls like filter cut and filter resonance, especially when performing live or doing automation. To link controls, right-click on a control to assign it to a group, then assign other controls to the same group. Now they'll move relative to one another. Then arm the synth for automation and jam away. Changing the track that the synth's automation lives on can also be changed from the larger synth rack view, as it can be moved to any track in the project. Or create a new track and move the automation there if you'd like it to live on its own track within the project. The browser also lives discreetly within screen sets. In this project, screen set number 2, the browser is in the multi-dock with the synth rack at full height and the inspector on the left. This is a great layout for playing live if you're using Sonar as a VST host on stage, because the synths can easily be selected, and there's access to mixing controls in the inspector, which follows the synth as it's selected. Screen set 3 has the browser docked on the right side of the workspace with the audio library folder showing. Screen set 4 has the browser in the same place, but with the Session Drummer 3 MIDI grooves folder showing. Screen set 5 shows the browser showing the track templates folder, while in screen set 6 the browser shows the audio effects menu. And the browser can be docked on either side of the workspace, floated, or docked in the multi-dock, all for a custom and powerful browsing experience within your workspace.